Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Korea once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now we're going to return to a brewery that has actually featured on the channel twice before. One of those times was a proper sit-down review, but the other one before that and the original time was an out and about video where I went and visited one of these guys' locations. But this beer was a little bit of a surprise find here in Hong Kong, and it's been a while since I've reviewed something from South Korea, so I just had to get one of these, and I've enjoyed the beers that I've had from these guys previously. They're quite well known for their sour beers, one of the first sour beer breweries here in over there in South Korea actually. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head over to Korea, South Korea to be specific, and we are going to go to the southeast corner of the country, to Busan, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Wild Wave Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Passionade, or Passionade, I'm not sure exactly how they want it pronounced. It comes in at 3.5% ABV, and this one is a Berliner Weisse. Now, like I said, Wild Wave Brewing are very well known for their different sour beers. These days they're canning their more modern sour beers actually, with all the different adjuncts and things like that, but the ones that are a little bit more kind of old school and things like this and the Sirline, which I think was a Goza if I remember correctly, that was the one we reviewed on the channel before, those are still in the little 330 milliliter bottles like this. So yeah, the more old school sour beers from Wild Wave are still in the bottles like this. This is another beer that I picked up at Ger Beer here in Hong Kong, in Tsim Sha Tsui. They've always got a good selection of stuff and some random things from South Korea and Taiwan and stuff like this. So yeah, when I saw this one, I thought, you know, I have to have a go at this and see what it's all about. But yeah, definitely cool to encounter these guys once again. One of the best Flanders Reds I ever had actually came from this brewery, and it was a really random find, something that I did not expect at all. But yeah, definitely cool to see one of their beers making it here to Hong Kong, and we certainly need to go back to South Korea at some point and do some more filming. That's something that's definitely on the cards for the future. But yeah, let's crack on with this then and see how we get on. The Passionade, 3.5% Berliner Weisse from Wild Wave Brewing Company in Busan, South Korea. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Wild Wave Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the South Korean playlist, which is being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit once again about Wild Wave Brewing Company. So, Wild Wave was founded back in 2015 by two friends, Chang Min and Jun Pyo, and they're based in Busan in the south coast, or on the south coast in the southeast, if you like, of South Korea. But Chang Min apparently discovered craft beer in England while he was studying there, and then he returned to Korea with his English wife. But initially, he was working at a trading company. But in his spare time, he began to homebrew with Jun Pyo, and they tried to learn as much as they could about brewing sour beers. And apparently the homebrewing scene in Busan is particularly well known for its production of sour beers. But they entered homebrewing competitions for a few years, and they won a number of prizes in the sour beer category, and it was this that prompted them to, you know, go for it and set up their own company, and these guys were the first sour beer brewery in all of South Korea. So the brewery soon gathered a strong following, and in 2017 they were able to open up their own brewery with taproom near Songjeong Station next to Haeundae Beach, and they now have a second pub, or they soon after that they opened up a second pub location in Gwangan. However, in 2021 they closed that location in Gwangan, but later in April of 2023 they started working on a new location in Yeongdo by the port, which they were calling Sour Yeongdo, and this opened up the following month in May. And it's really nice if you look at pictures of it. They've got views of the port, you can see the ships going past and things. It looks very, very cool actually. But as of March 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 90 different beers according to Untappd, and like I said to you, they are very, very well known for their different sour beers actually. So yeah, the Korean beer scene has come a long way since I was there back in 2019. There's a lot more canning and things going on. There seems to be cold chain, which there wasn't before. You could only really buy breweries' beers at their locations. You weren't really finding them in other places. But yeah, from what I gather, that has changed quite a lot actually, because I remember going to a beer shop in Seoul that was rated as one of the best ones in the whole country, and yeah, they didn't really have many Korean beers, and it was the same at the other shop I went to in yeah, it was the same at the other shop I went to in Jeju. They had lots of really interesting stuff from Europe and the US and Australia and things, but not a lot of Korean beer. But thankfully, that is starting to change. It's good to see the Korean beer scene picking up. But yeah, as I say, that's everything I can really tell you about Wild Wave Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So like I said to you, this one comes in at 3.5% ABV. It's called Passionade, and it is a Berliner Weisse. It tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. Artisanal ale. So in English it says, our Passionade is something we want to try, is for someone who wants to try the wild beer easily. This has a big punch of passion fruit aroma. It tastes like mixed fruited with passion fruit and lime. Huge citrus and sour flavours are dominant in this beer. But yeah, at 3.5% ABV, I have the feeling that this one is going to be like a kind of old school Berliner Weisse, because when you actually go to Berlin and try these things like the Berliner Kinders and stuff, yeah, they do tend to be sort of old school 3.5%ers. And the Surlime, which is their base beer for a number of things, if I remember rightly, that was like a Gose, and that was really, really quite nice. But yeah, this one, the Berliner Weisse, should be really interesting. Let's get this guy out and into the glass. I'll just show you the bottle cap on this one before we open up, if the camera will focus. There you go. Looks very, very nice. So let's get the beer out into the glass and see what it's all about. Good little bit of smoke on the opening there. And we will pour this guy then. Oh yeah. Carbonation is a little bit active in this one, so there you are. Look at that. So you can see this one has poured with quite a little bit of head, but that is very quickly going to fade away, definitely over a finger. And I would say that this is a kind of cream coloured head. It's not quite perfect white, but that is of course fading away very, very fast. I'm not sure how well you guys can see that on the video, but just you'll see that head is just dissipating really, really quickly. There you go. Looks very, very nice. Now there's just a wee foamy ring around the edge of the glass there and a few bubbles lingering. But yeah, this certainly does look very, very nice, I have to say. So you can see the colour of this one. If I put my hand behind the glass, it's got a lovely kind of ambery, orange type colour to it. You can see there's a bit of natural haze, which you would expect from the Berliner Weisse. You know, wheat is quite a common thing that will give beers their haziness. One or two big bubbles of carbonation sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones coming up toward the surface there, and you saw how quickly the head dissipated with this beer. But yeah, definitely one of the kind of richer coloured Berliner Weisses that I've come across, that's for sure. But yeah, I think it looks pretty damn nice actually. The way that everything kind of appears with this beer looks absolutely great. So yeah, in terms of the colour, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And it's quite common in like modern Berliner Weisses and Goses and things like that you do have to care about the adjunct and things like that. They don't often barrel age Berliner Weisses and things these days, come to think of it. But yeah, just going by the appearance of this one, I think this is going to be like a proper old school take on the Berliner Weisse style. So let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. Oh yeah, that does smell very, very nice. So yeah, this one, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of fruit adjunct in this, because you know they're talking about passion fruit aromas and things like that, and it actually does smell quite a bit like that. It could of course just be the yeast that they're using that gives you a lot of this passion fruity type character, but yeah, it certainly would not surprise me if this beer did have a little bit of actual passion fruit added into it. So yeah, aroma wise, this is absolutely lovely, I would say. But it gives you everything you'd expect of the Berliner Weisse. You've got a little bit of that bready, wheaty character underneath. You've got the kind of sharper, more citricy notes out of it. There's a little touch of sweetness in there, and a wee bit of a kind of hoppy character too. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this beer, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, aroma wise, it's lovely. So let's just break it down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. The backbone of the beer, you have a lovely little bit of that kind of you know, fresh, white bready, crisp bread crust in there. Absolutely getting some of that. So that's very, very apparent in this beer. Crisp, fresh, white bready bread crust. On top of that, good little bit of like fluffy white bread, but you can smell it's a little bit denser because of the fact that it's wheat. Yeah, it's got a bit of a sweetness to it as well, come to think of it. So yeah, you've got that fresh bread crust, a little bit of, there's a wee bit of an almost like vanilla note out of this, and a wee bit of like cracker as well, so that's quite interesting. Yeah, the way all of that pieces together, I think, is really interesting. I do like that. But yeah, lots of kind of fresh white bready notes out of this one. It's got almost a little bit of that kind of yogurty, you know, petit filou type note to it, which is quite interesting. I'm getting a little bit of that. There's certainly a wee bit of sweetness in there, like, you know, Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotch. So yeah, good little bit of Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotch coming out of it. And yeah, the way everything goes together in this one, I think, is really, really quite nice from the aroma perspective. You've got a good little bit of malty character in this one. Now, I would be very curious to know whether they're using hops in this beer, because this is a big argument among modern sour beer brewers. You know, do you need to use hops? Some brewers will say, yes, because it adds a depth of flavour to the beer, whereas some brewers will say no, because their beers are so fruit forward anyway that putting the hops in is kind of pointless. But what they used to do back in the day was they would use older hops that had lost a little bit of their alpha acid potency and use those in the sour beer. So you still got the depth of flavour, but you didn't have the conflict between bitterness and fruitiness. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind with when you think about the sour beers and things. But I do get the impression this beer does have a good little bit of green component to it, so I think it probably does have a little bit of hop in it. Yeah. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this is really quite nice. It's a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, on the... Yeah, I think there's a little bit of there's a little bit of an earthiness to this one, very small earthiness, wee touch of herbal character as well. I'm getting quite a little bit of like floral aromaticity and grassiness though, and it's the floral aromaticity and the grassiness that makes me think, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a a German noble hop or something like that in here, because it's very bright but also very, very smooth. So yeah, I like how all of that just kind of pieces together in this one. That gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, on the on the fruity side of things, then this is where it gets really interesting, because I'm really wondering whether they've added some fruit into this beer as an adjunct. So for me, the fruity side of this beer is quite it's certainly, you do get a lot of passion fruit out of this one, and you get that really sharp citricy limey character that they're talking about on the bottle. That is very, very apparent in this beer. But there are other little hints of, like, you do get a little bit of like a sort of guava-y type greenness out of this one, which is interesting. I'm getting some sort of apricot-y notes as well, maybe some like sultana and things. There's a whole host of different fruity characters coming out of this beer in the base. So yeah, definitely apricots, a little bit of an almost like papaya type note, and then yeah, you've got the big passion fruity notes, as we said, the sharper kind of limey citricy type notes. Yeah, the way everything goes together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice. Yeah, I do like that about about this beer. Aroma is very, very good. So yeah, on the aroma, I think is quite attractive, this one, I have to say. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beer. But yeah, this one strikes me as being a little bit more of a kind of old school Berliner Weisse. But when I think about the ones that I actually had in Berlin, I would say that this one is a little bit more kind of it's definitely got a little bit more of a kind of pungency to it. It's definitely a little bit more pungent, a little bit more punchy in its aroma, so that makes it quite interesting from that perspective too. But yeah, let's crack on with it and just see what it's going to have in store for us. It should be nice. So yeah, this one is the Passionade, 3.5% Berliner Weisse from Wild Wave Brewing Company in Busan in South Korea. Very well known, of course, for their sour beers. But let's get stuck in. Slanje, skål, cheers, gambe. Ooh, that has a hell of an impact to it. It's like, yeah, that's very sour. Yeah, and I will say that I think this one, the carbonation is quite heavy in this, but you could see that when we poured it, the carbonation was quite active. I think this one might have been bottled a wee while ago. It says on the side here, July 2022, so this could have been in the bottle like a year and a half or something like that. Oops. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind, actually, although it's Gur beer, they don't sell stuff that's out of date. Stuff's always pretty damn fresh. Yeah, so this one for me, let's just have another little sip of it. Oh yeah, it's fine. It's just that impact flavour, as I say, because it has obviously been sitting for a little while, but the carbonation on this one is quite active, and it gives you the impression that the beer is sort of extremely light, and that's very, very interesting for sure. So yeah, where do we start with this one then? On the fruity side of things, it's quite it really has a good little bit of sharpness to it, and I really do like how that pieces together. So the fruity side of things with this beer is kind of dominates. Like, it is a really citricy forward Berliner Weisse, this one, and it's only further into the aftertaste that you get the more kind of classic flavors that you would expect of the Berliner Weisse. But let's just break the flavour of this beer down and describe it a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So middle third of your palate, you've got that nice, you've got that nice kind of smooth, fresh, white bready, bread crusty backbone there. That forms the backbone of your beer. As you come further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a more kind of woody type note, which comes out of the beer the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, there's a little bit of there is a little touch of like a Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing to this one. So yeah, there's a bit of a Jacob's cream crackery type note in this beer, which I do really like. So yeah, Jacob's cream cracker. Then above that, you start to get the white bread, and the white bready characters in this one, they have a really they've got a little bit of like sweetness to them, and they've got quite a little bit of density as well, which is quite interesting. So you've got the fluffy kind of white bread in this one, which is from the barley malt, but then you can feel the more dense, pardon me, you can feel the more dense, this is giving me a little bit of gas because of the carbonation. You can absolutely get a little bit of the more dense kind of wheaty bread coming out of this one too, so for sure you can really notice that in this beer, and that's quite interesting too. So yeah, food for thought, definitely food for thought with this beer. But yeah, the way everything kind of pieces together, and this is quite nice. In the dead centre of your palate, you get a little circle there where you've got a wee bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. So, and that's obviously the boozy side of the beer, but at 3.5%, you're not going to get much sweetness out of the beer just from the booziness. And maybe above that smooth, wheaty, white bready layer, you just get a little bit of a kind of biscuity type character as well. So yeah, the way all of that just kind of pieces together, I think, is really nice. But yeah, I like this. I do like how all of that. I do like how all of this kind of just pieces together. It's awesome. But that covers the middle third of the palate then. Let's go to the back third of the palate. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours, just at kind of different intensities. But yeah, they'll just, yeah, you'll get a wee bit of a different kind of intensity out of these things. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate. So you get a nice little bit of that bready build up in there. You can feel that, and then the base of that, the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the kind of fresh white bready bread crust in this one. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there. Then on top of that, you can feel like a layer of cracker, which feels a little bit drier, of course. Then you've got the barley malt bread in there, which feels a little bit, taller, lighter, and more airy. And then above that, you've got the kind of wheaty, white bready character coming out of this one. So yeah, I really do like how that pieces together. So yeah, the wheaty, the sort of more dense wheaty character that's in there is quite nice. And then above that, you can feel just a very slight dry brown sugary character coming out of the beer. And then above everything else on that back third of your palate, you've got the yeasty characters. So you can feel on the yeasty side of things, there's this really dense centre of, you've got a really dense centre of white bread in there. Then that's surrounded by a little bit of a lighter white bread and a wee bit of a bread crust as well. And as I say, all of that sits on top of the back third of your palate. So definitely you can feel that the flavour, on the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the centre of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is really quite nice. On the hoppy side of things, you know, I'm wondering about this beer. I don't know. I really don't know if it has hops in it, because, you know, with this kind of beer, you're always going to get a little bit of a placebo sort of thing from any hop from it, even if there aren't hops. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, I do get what would seem like a little bit of green component. There's a wee bit of earthiness in there, a wee bit of a herbal character. Then as you push further and further forward, you get a little bit more kind of floral aromaticity out of this one. So yeah, lovely little bit of floral aromaticity. Round the front curve of the tongue, you've got a wee bit of a lighter kind of grassiness coming out of the beer. So yeah, the way that all goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, the grassiness, certainly a bit of a smooth grassiness, a little bit of floral aromaticity, herbal earthiness. To me, that would be an indicator of the use of German noble hops like Hallertau or Tettnanger. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a little bit of that in there. I'm pretty sure with the original Berliner Weisses, they do use a little bit of that. But yeah, the hoppy character, obviously, it seems to have kind of dropped out a little bit. And of course, the Berliner Weisse is not the most hop forward of beers anyway, so that is worth bearing in mind. On the fruity side of things, then, the front third of your palate, let's look at that. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, then you get a little bit of a kind of brown bready, not brown bready, you get a little bit of the kind of more barley malt white bready base. Then you've got the denser wheat sitting on top of that, and the base of that front third of your palate, you've got the fresh kind of, you've definitely got that fresh brown bread, that fresh white bready bread crust in there, the barley malt, and then the denser wheat, and then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. But with this one, obviously you have to talk about impact flavours as well, because when you take this beer in, you're going to get a hell of a lot of that really sharp, limey kind of punch coming out of the beer. That's immediately obvious with this one. So yeah, quite a lot of that going on with this beer. So when you take it in, just behind that front tip of your tongue, you can feel the sharp, limey character coming in, just giving you that really good bit of punch, and that lingers there into the aftertaste. But yeah, further back in that oily bubble, you do get a nice kind of smooth passion fruit. You've got a good little bit of juicy mango and apricot and stuff like that in there. And yeah, so passion fruit, apricot, yeah, a little bit of like you know, a little bit of like papaya or something in there too. That's really, really interesting. And then yeah, as you go into the front half of that front third of your tongue, it's all about that big, sharp, citricy kind of limey note, and that sharp, citricy, limey note lingers into the aftertaste. But yeah, all in all, very interesting beer, this one. I've certainly enjoyed tasting this one. It's quite cool to go back and have like a proper old school Berliner Weisse, because most of the sour beers you get these days are the big kind of you know, like fruity, juicy, modern type things, which are good, of course, but you know, you do want to go back to something a wee bit more old school at times. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the tasting section. Let's round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, beer is kind of top end of light bodied, that's for sure. The carbonation on this one is very, very active, but I think that's maybe the age of the bottle, not 100% sure. But of course, in the summer in South Korea, it is very, very warm, so you can see why. This sort of beer would be attractive to them for sure. These kind of easy drinking modern sour beers, these would be very, very attractive in such a hot tropical environment. It makes sense. But yeah, on the lost my track. Yeah, so with this one, in terms of the bitterness and things, it's very low IBU, you know, like 15, 20, maybe 15 at most. There's a bit of dryness comes out of this one. You've got the dryness on the malty side of things, you've got the dryness from the bread crust, the smoothness in the middle, and a little touch of sweetness on top. As I say, a little bit of kind of hoppy character coming out of this one. That gives you the 15 or so IBUs. Then you've got a nice kind of smooth tropical fruity character, but with quite a little bit of a powerful citricy kick to it, especially when you take it in. But all in all, a really, really interesting beer. and I'm certainly glad I got to try this one. I think this has been very, very nice to try, actually. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. This has been really interesting. Definitely cool to return to Wild Wave Brewing Company after such a long time. I guess I'll need to go and go back to Korea and check out some of their other beers. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Wild Wave Brewing Company as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, Gambé. Check out my social media, check out Wild Wave Brewing Company's social media, and I'll see you guys again shortly. Slàinte, Skål,